Welcome to the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm Nate Hedrick.
And I'm David Bright. We're both pharmacists and real estate investors that believe that real estate investing does not have to distract from a meaningful career in pharmacy.
Each episode, we share stories that educate and inspire pharmacists to leverage real estate investing as a part of your financial plan. Hey, David, how's it going?
Hey, good, thanks. How you doing, man?
Good. Getting toward it's been a busy summer, getting toward the end of it. We actually just got back from a pretty cool trip. We were in Iceland for about a week and just had an awesome time. But now I'm trying to get my feet back under me and pretend like I'm in the real world again.
That's awesome. Yeah,
really
I need
cool
to see pictures at some point because I keep hearing that Iceland is beautiful. Yeah.
It was super unique. And yeah, the pictures don't like anywhere, right? Pictures don't do it justice, but it's definitely a place to visit for sure.
That's cool. We did not go to Iceland, but we did get out a little bit. That's one of the nice things about Michigan is you don't have to go far to be on vacation and be out of here. So that was great, but it has been a wild stretch of the real estate market lately. At least on our end, we sold a house, bought a house, put another one on the MLS that's just went up for sale this past weekend.
Nice.
I have a rental property going through the inspection process. It's been kind of chaotic here with just a lot going on. I know this is traditionally the part of the summer where things start to level off and wind down in the real estate agent side, but how's your business in Cleveland looking right now?
Yeah, it's getting that way. It's been a busy year. It's actually been my busiest year ever. And I'm not sure if that's the market or if that's just like my season of my real estate career, because it's sort of weird, right? Certain areas are selling fast still, or they're still very hot. Other areas are slowing down a little bit. Other areas that were hot have had more houses sitting longer than usual. And by longer, I mean 3 weeks instead of 3 days. So it's, it's not that drastic, but there are some changes. And it reminds me again that real estate is so local, because if I read any national news about real estate, it's like, that's not happening here because it's always different wherever you are. It's very specific to your locale.
Yeah. And a lot of those national news stories, there's a pretty decent lag on the data too. So it's really hard to take national information from 3 months ago and apply that to today's local real estate market. Right. So
Exactly.
Yeah, the big perk of having a real estate agent that has their ear to the ground and knows what's going on.
Good point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is, I feel like this is a common theme among pharmacists. Like, we're busy people anyway. We have a busy career anyway. We try to stack real estate on top of that, and it only gets busier. And so it can be hard sometimes to get your head above water and look around and have some of those big picture moments of planning. And that's one of the things I really like that today's guest was able to do, and just think about where he wants to take his real estate investing and have some strategy and vision in there.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to be joined by Greg Zinis. Greg is a pharmacist out of Virginia Beach right now, and a manager at Walgreens. He's been a pharmacist for years and a real estate investor in the area as well. And it's just great to get his full story about how he got started in real estate and what he's sort of done with it that I think is unique or different than some of the others.
Yeah, I really love how he chose to merge philanthropy with his investing, and that part comes towards the end of the episode. So particularly if you're fascinated by this ability of real estate investing to accomplish other goals like helping people in your community, make sure to stay tuned. It's just a really cool story of how he merges those values in his investing.
Yeah, I completely agree. So again, a good inspirational story about how to get started and ways you can do it in ways that, again, help not just yourself, but others, which I really enjoy. So hope you guys enjoy the episode, and we'll take you to it. Hey, Greg, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you. This is really appreciate you joining us and sharing your story. Why don't we just dive right in? Maybe give us a little bit of background on your pharmacy journey, and we'll take it from there.
All right, yeah, I'm from Michigan originally. I was, born and raised in Michigan. I went to undergrad at Northern Michigan University, went to pharmacy school at Ferris State University there. And I graduated in 2009. I'd been in Michigan my whole life. And so I was really thinking about moving somewhere warmer. I wanted to be by the coast because I grew up on Lake Superior there in Marquette, and just a bigger city too. And it was right after the crash in 2009. And so the shortages were, in Arizona, parts of Florida, Nevada, and Virginia at the time. Those places stick out. And I thought I'd try maybe a year in each location or 1 or 2 years and see what it was like and, explore a new city. But Yeah, I got to Virginia. I met my wife here, and I've been here ever since. So, but it takes a lot to pack up, move, and go to a new city. It took forever to learn the city too. So it was a fun adventure. And at the time, I figured it was halfway between, Washington D.C., New York City, and Florida too. So or not exactly half, but on that side of the
Mm-hmm.
geography of the U.S. So that's what brought me to Virginia. And then, when I first got out in pharmacy, I did the night shift because I liked the week on, week off schedule. It gave me the freedom to, at the time, I'd go down to Puerto Rico and stay in the hostels there because it was, $10, $11 a night there at the hostel. So I'd be able to travel on that week off and have some fun. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I went back to the day shift after that as a pharmacy manager for maybe half a dozen years. And here we are. I was in Norfolk, in Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, all over the Hampton Roads area here in Virginia.
Very cool. I can think of that time in 2009 when real estate was a scary thing and a lot of real estate was really on sale, and then moving to a vacation market. I could see a lot of potential opportunity there. I'm curious then if you could tell us a little bit about your real estate investing story, kind of when that began and what got you in that groove.
Well, when I moved down to Virginia Beach here, I lived on 18th Street. They have this area called the Ocean Front. That's where all the hotels and resorts are. And I was a couple blocks away from that. But, one unique thing in Virginia Beach is that there's a boardwalk. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but it's probably 30 feet wide. It's cement and it runs about 40 blocks right along the ocean right there. And the house I was renting a room out of at the time, is 3 blocks from that. But it was me and a couple guys. We had a great time because you could just hop on your beach cruiser, go down to the boardwalk, and there's all those restaurants and bars down there. You could hit up and get, a meal or two, and you could go swimming too if you wanted to. So I really love that area. I lived there for a couple of years, and then I wanted to buy a property in that area because I loved it and I thought it had a lot of potential. And just from living there in Virginia Beach, you learn that, June, July, and August, that's the tourist season. And people rent their properties for a week at a time. So I bought a property right around 26th Street over there. And I just thought, I'd live in it for a while and have roommates. I found out that was, what is that, house hacking, at the time. Or I didn't know it was called that. I guess, a lot of people do that, though. I was just thinking long term, though, that if I bought a house there, it'd be easy to sell, it'd be easy to rent, and I'd have options. And that was right after the real estate crash, too. So it's kind of, that was a scary time. And I got a pretty good deal on the house at the time. And so, I moved in there. And that was that was in 2010 when I bought that house, towards the end of it. And so I've had it since then. And actually I did the weekly rentals for one summer. The formula there at the time, because that was a while ago, that was probably like 2012, 2013. One week is basically what you'd get in 1 month of doing a long-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 12 weeks in the summertime, and that's a pretty good formula to have. And then if you rent it in the off season at all, that's just extra money to help cover expenses or profit. And so I did that. I did it for one summer, but it was a lot of work though. And the long-term rentals were more of autopilot. And I had a property manager do the long-term rentals. I did not do that myself. It was a lot easier to pay the fee and have somebody professionally do it than having to go through that headache. And you just make, and it's been on autopilot since then. I've had hardly any issues at all. But at the time, it was just easier to have it on long-term rentals. And so I've done that since then, but I'm actually going to go back and convert it back to short-term rentals. Because I want to get that. I think it's going to be a lot more profitable to do the short-term rentals at this point too. And one other thing too, I forgot to mention is when I bought that house, the attic wasn't finished, but it had a very large attic with dormers on it. And so there's a lot of headspace too. And at that time I added that was the attic as the fourth floor. I added a bathroom and a room to that. And so that brought it up to Now it's a 3.5 bath and 4 bedroom house, but it's built vertically too. So it's, if you live in there and your bedroom's on the fourth floor, your legs get a workout running up and down every day. A noticeable difference after a while. But yeah, so we did that. I did that, and then I met my wife, and we moved into apartments because that rental property really it only made sense on paper for money as a rental property. It's pretty expensive to live in.
So, Greg, you mentioned something awesome I want to go back to just for a second, and that is that you got a pretty good deal in 2009, and I think this was a very different time to buy. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think many people struggle when they're buying their first place to even find an option. So, how did you find the deal? What did that look like for you? Because I think, again, different buying time, but still, I think relevant to a lot of people that are struggling to find that first property.
Oh yeah, so in 2009, I graduated in 2009. I got there in 2010. And at the time, I think that was a little bit right after the crash. So the housing prices, they had come down a lot. I think they still actually went down after that even more in part of 2010. So I don't think I bought at the exact bottom at that time. So I had a real estate agent at that time. And I think she kind of actually oversold me a little bit. But she knew it was going to be a rental property. But it was definitely something that wasn't really a mortgage. I wasn't really comfortable holding on my own at the time either. So it's like I kind of committed to having roommates. And so having the roommates at the time, I was single, it made it a lot easier because I charge the roommates really good rent. It was really inexpensive rent. So I wasn't price gouging, but that rental income really helped offset it. And I was planning on doing those weekly rentals in the summertime. So that made that purchase decision easier. But also at the time, I was 24 and I had just gotten out of pharmacy school and I was working really hard through grad school. Like, grad school is no joke. We all know that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to get out and work really hard and get all this money and pay off my school loans. And so, my dad had kind of raised me with a little bit of an investment mindset when I was younger. And so I thought I could be gutsy. I'm like, I could either save up all this money and pay off my school loans, or I could save up this money and buy a rental property. And I'm going to bet that over time, that real estate is going to increase in value and pay off those school loans at some point down the road. I could sell that property and I'll pay for my school loans. And that's kind of, it was a risk because I had, I'm pretty comfortable saying I had, $90,000 in school loans. I feel like that's pretty standard for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But also after working so hard, I didn't want to get out and then work hard to pay off loans. I wanted to work hard and have fun because I've been, I wanted to enjoy the fruits of my labor, if you will. Mm-hmm. So that was the risk I took. And it was just, it was a downtime at the market. And I thought I had time on my side too. When you have time on your side, eventually it's going to be a good decision, I'd say. It may take a while for that to come to fruition, but that was another aspect of it as well.
Yeah, when I look at what a lot of people were paying in 2009 versus today, I have a feeling that if we fast forward to today, I'm curious, do you still have that property and were you able to sell it and make like a killing on it at this point compared to 2009?
Yeah, it's gone up way more than I expected, It's almost doubled in price, pretty much. It's gotten pretty close to that. I actually tried selling it about 5 or 6 years after I bought it, which I'm really glad nobody bought it because it's increased a lot in value. And the other crazy thing too, though, is I put a lot of money in my 401k, and I put some money into that real estate, but that real estate's become a large portion of my my portfolio too. It's really, the return on the money I put in the real estate has way outpaced the return on the 401k, which, nobody has 2020 hindsight, but, and of course there's a lot of factors that went into the economy since then, the pandemic and whatnot. But that was a huge benefit. I'm glad I feel like I took the punk route and didn't pay off my school loans. I took the gutsy route and it, worked out. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, It's a difficult move to make at the moment, right? Because you look at the debt and that's a known quantity, and what the future holds, obviously nobody knows, right? So you're kind of taking a jump that a lot of people are nervous to make. So I guess tell me, so you bought this primary residence, right? You lived in it for a while, turned it into a rental, been going back and forth with that. What kind of came next? I mean, were there more properties? Were you running flips all of a sudden? Like, what was the next phase for you?
Well, so I moved out of there and I was living in an apartment with my wife and I rented an apartment. We were saving up money for, to buy a house basically. But then, we had our first baby. And so we were in an apartment, but we really wanted to get into a house because having a baby is a big life adjustment, as a lot of people, find out about. So I guess a couple of years after that, we had fun living in apartments in different areas of the city, and then we saved up money for a house. And our baby arrived a little sooner than, expected. And so we decided to move into a house. And I would consider this part of the country kind of a high cost area of living. And so we wanted to get a fixer upper house because they're less expensive. And we wanted to fix it up over time because it was an older house. We thought it'd be fun to get an older house and fix it up. Like, that's just kind of what we wanted to do. So we're looking at properties. And one other thing too is I like to run, but I played soccer for a while and we like to be by the beach. And so I don't really run on cement or pavement. I like to run on the beach. So we had to be, there's a lot of beach in this area. And so we had to be a couple blocks from the beach in order to be able to run. Mm-hmm. So part of it was exercise. But there's very expensive rich parts of the beach, and there's less expensive areas of the beach. And we actually moved into the less expensive area of the beach. And so we just kind of got lucky at the time too. We really scored being on the Chesapeake Bay here, where we got in, because now, the prices have increased dramatically too for this new house that we bought too. But we had no idea that was coming. At the time, we were looking at houses, and this one had a low price. And actually, we didn't really realize at the time it was a short sale from the bank because that wasn't in there. We're just looking at houses in that price range. And it just so happened to be a short sale. And we didn't even know what that was. We had a vague idea at the time it was a foreclosure, and a real estate agent was telling us about that. And they're like, you may or may not get it. It takes longer. And it actually took 6 months to get this house. But we had some time. We weren't really in a rush. It was just something we wanted to do. And so we put in an offer on that. And it was a short sale. And the bank countered at like 20, 30 grand over asking price. This is 8-9 years ago. And it's a game they play in foreclosures, I think, because it almost felt like a bait and switch because they had this price. We didn't know they're going to counter, but then they came back and countered. We're like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll go up like $1,000, and if they don't want that, we're going to walk. Which I'm really glad we didn't accept what they countered at, because it is a foreclosure. And so we just we countered at that, and they accepted it, and then we took it and we moved in here. And so we've had it since then. We've been doing improvements over time.
Yeah, so right about the same time that you went through this, my wife and I also bought a short sale that we did as a live and flip. So I resonate with this story, right? We bought something that was a major fixer-upper. The advice we were given at the time is that there is nothing short about a short sale. It takes forever, but the crux of it is that you're shorting the mortgage payoff, so you need to get permission from the bank to do that as a way of avoiding a foreclosure for the seller. Is that kind of what you experienced?
Yeah, that's what it was. If you have the flexibility of time, short sales are kind of good to look into because you might score a really good opportunity, or it could be a disaster. There's some risk. It's not risk free, but you can definitely have a good opportunity if you have time on your side.
Yeah. So then it sounds like you fixed this property up while you live there, which my wife and I have done that a couple times. I feel like there's definitely good in that. There's definitely headaches of living in a construction zone, right? So tell me how that went for you.
Yeah, it was, the first thing we did was we redid our floors. This is an older house. I think it was built in 1949. And so it had original hardwood floors. So we did that first. We tore up all the carpeting and had the floors professionally done. And those look beautiful and amazing. We did that probably within the first year. And then after a couple years, we wanted to really fix up the inside, do the kitchen and both bathrooms, repaint the entire interior, and redo the flooring on the second floor. And so we dove into that. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I had been developing an interest in real estate. And I'd even say Tarek Al Musa, because he does fix and flip on, we saw those TV shows. So I wanted to learn the process on it. My wife was kind of on board with it. She really wanted to pick out her own kitchen and all the features, and then really kind of design the bathrooms too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we dove into that, and live-in flips are a lot more difficult. I wouldn't, we did that once. I don't think we'll ever do it again because there's a lot more involved with it. You are kind of living in a construction zone. And of course, when you're doing live-in flips, you should try to do it as quick as you can, but plan for delays. Try to do it in 1 or 2 months, but plan for it to take as long as 6 months. But I was able to learn that whole process, the permitting, pulling all the permits, doing the inspections. I wanted to do it, with the city involved so they knew what we were doing too. Because that's important. You gotta pull the permits and make the city aware. If you don't make the city aware, they could get really upset and make your life really miserable. So I wanted to avoid that and do it the right way.
And from a realtor perspective, right, if you're adding value in the kitchen and the bathroom, like that's where, again, investor mindset for just a second, like it's fun because you guys get to pick that out and enjoy it, but it's also great for the resale value of that property down the road. Like those are the things that are going to sell a property first, is the kitchens, the bathrooms. Putting the time and money into that makes the most sense. I love that.
Yeah, we really got to customize it too. My wife loves the backsplash you got to pick out. We did a bigger window in the kitchen, got more lighting in there. We put in a farmhouse style sink that she loves. We splurged and did a tile shower, on both bathrooms because that's fun. You get to pick that out and design it. The other, one other thing though too, I'll say is that when I was a teenager, when I was going to college in the summers, I would help build garages, and so I had a background there with with framing. I know how to do framing, siding, roofing, doors and windows. So I have a little bit of an idea of what we're getting into. So that definitely helped.
Did you do a lot of that work then yourself, or did you hire it all out and you're able to manage it better because you had that background?
Actually, well, what I did, if it's your primary residence, you're allowed to manage your own construction, which is a huge thing. You got to check your local laws. But I had done some real estate investing, learning, and they're saying you got to put the system in place so you can scale it. If you don't have the system, you can't scale it. And so I actually didn't do it. I hardly did any of the work myself. I hired people so I could find the people that knew how to do it and would be reliable and do quality and good pricing. And so I even paid somebody to come in and paint it. I was really tempted to paint, but I paid a painter. I'm glad I did.
It's an easy trap to fall
I'm
into.
glad I paid all these tradespeople. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's an easy trap to fall into because it's right there, right? You're just like, I can pick up a paintbrush. Like this is easy, but yeah. I think it's really valuable to have those people and find those relationships, find good quality people, but still oversee it so that you understand the ins and outs of it. I think that's a great setup. And that, like, if it was an emergency and we had to get to the point of like, I have to paint this or this doesn't make money, you could do that. But you building this system from the beginning, it makes a lot more sense. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And so, you really got to try to, it's almost like playing chess too, because you got to think 30, 40 steps ahead of time and try to budget for everything, and try to manage all that, and make sure the math works out too. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So what came next then? It sounds like you've done the live and flip. You've had this rental. You've done some vacation rentals, some long-term rental, but you're learning and you're growing at this stage. So what did that springboard you into next?
All right. So there's one thing I forgot to mention is that, after being a pharmacist since 2010, the pandemic came, and initially there was too many pharmacists. And so because there's a decrease in business, and I think the heads of the company thought there would be too many. And so they had to cut staff to free up people because they expected a dramatic downturn in business. And so at that time, my wife and I had our third child, our third baby had just been born, and they were offering, you could either stay at the company or you could take a severance and leave the company. And then if you took the severance, if you came back before a year, you'd have to pay it back. Or if you took the severance, you may not have a job after that. And then there are some grads. I'd been working really hard for a long time as a pharmacy manager. I thought it'd be a good time to take some time off. And there are some grads that just graduated and they needed jobs. I'm like, you know what? We could just take this risk, take the severance, take some time off. And then if we needed to, I mean, if it came to it, we could always move from the area to find a job somewhere. And so I took that year off, which was scary, but it was the beginning of the pandemic. And that had changed the economy and everyone's life at the time, as we all know. But during that year off, I wanted to learn more about real estate because I was getting really, I just wanted to learn about it. And I haven't really found any good resources. And so I paid for one of those real estate investing courses. And it was the Elite Legacy program that was originally done through Robert Kiyosaki. So I paid for that. And it was basically the whole idea of that company. I think he eventually sold it to them. I don't know if he's still part of it or not. He might still own it. I'm not sure, but it was through him. The whole idea is you would get 4 years of knowledge and you learn it really quick and you'd have it in a couple months. And so it speeds up your timeline because, with investing in any kind of investing, speeding up your timeline is helpful. And so I just paid it and there's thousands of pages of information about a wide swath of real estate, like everything from buying land to buying mobile home parks to doing group homes, residential. They even had stuff on commercial, stuff on writing notes for making mortgages. There's just anything real estate involved. I read thousands of pages on that and learned about all that stuff. And so I told my wife, I'm like, we could just throw it on the credit card and then we could flip the house. This is before we flipped the house. And the lessons I learned from that allowed me to flip the house. And flipping the house is profitable enough to where it covered the cost of flipping the house. And then also it covered the cost of that program. And then we had a profit as well. And so, I was fairly confident. My wife trusts me a lot, I guess. I was pretty confident that I could pull it off. And it really got scary at times because I was like, I don't know. Because when you're doing it, when you're in the middle of a major renovation, there's just a lot of factors involved in it. But one thing I learned from that course was that if you could add a bedroom, you could greatly increase the value because our house was originally 3 bedrooms here. I added a wall, and that wall was a beautiful thing because that wall probably cost $300 or $400, but that hugely increased the value of the house. And so that made the flip profitable from that course. So I took the course into that too. So
it seems like, and again, like any good pharmacist, right? You really like the education piece and making sure you've got your ducks in a row before kind of moving forward and learning more things than just kind of sitting back, right? And so you also, we mentioned, we talked before we were hit record, and you also recently became a licensed real estate agent. So, again, I think furthering that education piece, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to do that and what you plan on doing with that license?
Yeah. And so part of that, when I took that class, they're talking about joining a local real estate investing association, which I joined that. And I learned about wholesaling. A lot of real estate investing is trying to find deals or off-market deals on your own. And so I got into wholesaling and I said, I'm just going to dive in and try this. And I went door knocking. I drove around in neighborhoods looking for distressed properties. And the whole idea of real estate investing is it should be a win-win-win situation where you're helping the owner, you're helping yourself, and then you can help a third party, whether that's a renter or reselling it or the community. Mm-hmm. Really, it's altruism all around, helping people. And so I went out one day. I went and knocked on 30 doors on in this neighborhood that I thought people might want to sell their houses. That'd be a good place to renovate their distressed properties. And I talked to a lot of people, and I had 3 really strong leads. Wow. And they all asked me if I had my real estate license or not. And I didn't have it. And and I'm like, what, I could have gotten those. And so had I only had my license so I wanted to go get my license because it is really fun. It's a fun, like the investing aspect, and then also helping people and just buying houses, and showing people houses. I thought it'd be fun because people get excited about going to buy a house. They get excited about a new place to live. or if they're in a really scary, terrible situation, it feels really good to help them with their exit strategies to find out how it's most beneficial. So there's that as well.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. Again, I've been licensed for 7 years now, and I agree. It's just like an extension of the care and the help that you find in pharmacy. You can translate that right to real estate, right? There's different problems to be solved. Then it's not medication all of a sudden. It's, where you're going to live, and it's fun to kind of address those problems and see somebody come out on the other end in a better state than when you left them. So I really like that. I also think it's crazy impressive that you went out and knocked on 30 doors. I don't know a lot of people that are like, I'm confident I'm going to go out and just like knock on these doors and see if people are ready to sell a house like that. The vast majority of people would not be willing to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think part of that is because I was born and raised in a small town. Marquette, Michigan's like 30,000 people. Everybody knows everyone pretty much. And now I'm in a big city and it's, a million or 1.2 million people or 1.4 million in this area. So it is kind of funny going in the city and doing that, but everyone was really friendly and nice. As long as you approach them, nice and happy, and I don't know, they kind of match your energy. And now also being a pharmacist too, we interact with every aspect of society, whether they're, people that are going through major struggles or, the upper society too. Everyone in between comes in, whether they're healthy or sick. So I think that was an edge too, because you're kind of get used to it. Anyone can walk up to that consult window at any time with any question. So.
Yeah, I love your attitude in this because I think real estate investing can oftentimes get this rap for being really predatory and trying to find people and squeak deals through and things like that. But I love how you're approaching this with this win-win-win mentality. And I know you also shared with us before we started recording that you've got some philanthropic goals in there as well. So I'd love to hear more about that, how you also intend on helping the community.
Yeah, one thing in the real estate investing course is they talk about social housing or group housing for different aspects. So it's kind of opened up the idea to this where it's not just short-term rentals for vacationers, but you can buy a house, a property, and you can rent out rooms to people, whether it's for, domestic violence survivors that need short-term housing, or a recovery house for people that have, alcohol problems or narcotic problems. And I think even now there's group homes for the elderly too, where they can have kind of a group living atmosphere. But one thing, so I was aware of that, of those shorter term rentals, whether those are weeks to months. But with that condo, the condo that I bought in Virginia Beach, it really took off, and I've been very fortunate, and really there's a lot of fortunate people. There's a lot of fortunate short term rentals owners in that area, because I'm not sure the year Airbnb came out, but I don't think it really got huge until the pandemic. And luckily, people that had bought before the pandemic. It was kind of this windfall of appreciation in your property value, the increase in your property value,
Mm-hmm.
and then rents increased. And so the properties generally, they pay for themselves, and then there's profit too. And so I was thinking about ways to give back to people. Because actually the reason that came along was because my dad, one of my parents, my father, was like, son, you need to consider charity or donating, donating your time. And I'm like, Dad, I don't have any time to be volunteering anywhere with work and kids and a wife, But then I kind of looked at my situation. I'm like, well, how can I help people? And the unique thing is, if you have a short-term rental property, it's never 100% vacancy. Or it could be, I don't know. It rarely is, but there inevitably comes up a time in the year where it's not rented. And so then you have this empty house. Well, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to just let it sit there? Or can you maybe try to find a use for that? And there's a lot of people that are in that situation with short-term rentals. And so I thought, also, I'm in a military town here, Virginia Beach. It's huge. This is area in the country. There's a lot of military bases, and I think one of the largest naval bases in probably the world is here too, on Little Creek Naval Base. But it's a military town, and so I was like, you know what? Why don't I just donate 1 week? There's 52 weeks out of a year. Why don't I just give 1 week a year to a military family, where they could come down and stay for free in a rental property, because they're, they sacrifice a lot. And I was thinking, honestly, the military people that just got out of boot camp that maybe have families, or the younger military people, they're probably in a higher stress situation. They may not have the higher income yet, and they sacrifice a lot. So I'm like, what if I gave 1 week a year to a military family to come out and enjoy and have fun, and it'd be completely free. Cool. And they could even pick the week they want to do too, because they should be able to pick the week they want to. Any short-term rental property should be able to absorb that based off, the math on it. And so I thought that'd be pretty cool and pretty fun to do. This is a fun little thing. And then I thought, if I did that, if I did that for 20 years, it'd be 20 families. But then I really thought, I'm like, and I know some other short-term rental owners too, like some of my neighbors are, because I have that property in that area. So you get to know your neighbors. Mm-hmm. And I approached them too. I'm like, well, what if I get 10 or 20 owners to do it? And then over 20 years, that'd be like 400 families. Wouldn't that be a fun thing? And like, who deserves a week free the most? I was thinking really probably the military. And then I was maybe thinking even, law enforcement too. I don't know, maybe giving a week to law enforcement just to show appreciation, because they go through a lot. We don't have to get into that, but we know they have very stressful jobs. And so I thought that'd be really awesome and pretty cool. And so I have there's short-term rental owners that are interested. And so there's 2 owners. Between those 2 owners, they own 5 units, and that'd be my units. That's up to 6 units already.
Cool.
But I'm going to really try to launch that for 2025, the summer of 2025. And so it's been a goal and a thought process. It's just making it a reality now. But there's been probably, honestly, the biggest challenges I have had. Well, one reason is I have long-term renters in there right now, and I told them you get a year, at least 1 year, maybe 2, but probably only 1 year, because I wanted to convert it. But people move in there, they don't want to move out, and now they're on year 3. But I'm like, this is your final year. I'll extend it 1 more year, but I cannot do this anymore. Like, you need to move out. We talked about that ahead of time. But just between life, it's been really hard to, and I got to get the licensing too. With the city of Virginia Beach, I didn't get grandfathered for the short-term rental that I had about 10 years ago. So I have to go through permitting, and I'm doing it the legal way because I don't want to run afoul of the city, And honestly, the longest part too has been the permitting process. I've been trying to get these permits. This is probably the 2nd year of getting the permits lined up, so it's all legal and kosher. But I should be able to get that finalized here in the next, really probably by September, and then I'll be advertising it probably September, October for the next summer.
That's really cool.
So it's like go time now. And there's been, my wife and I have been having kids. So that's been, there's been all these factors that have delayed it, but doing it legally with the permits and the local politics can have a huge impact on a short-term rental property. So
we've heard that from a lot of guests in the past too, where, you've got to make sure you've got the local regulations in place first and doing it the proper way. Otherwise, you're just going to create huge problems down the road. So I think that's a really good point to make sure that people don't miss is whatever you're going to do, right? Make sure you're following the right local ordinances so you're not messing things up.
Yeah, you got to do that. We're all licensed professionals. In pharmacy, we know there's tons of laws, and you cannot break the law with anything. So it just it's it is for safety. We all know that too. It's all safety related, and it's all those laws and regulations have been written for a reason. So
I guess with all the things going on, you've given us kind of a flavor of this, but what do you think is the next thing? So 2025 sounds like maybe the military housing idea, maybe more work as an agent. Like what's the one thing that you really feel like is next?
Well, right now, I just got my real estate license, and I'm really focusing on being an agent right now. Okay. I was a pharmacy manager. I stepped down to staff because honestly, I stepped down to staff pharmacist because my wife and I have 4 babies. We're done now. We're done with that. But being a manager has a lot of demands, and I'd been doing that for about 6 or 7 years. And I wanted to step down to staff to be able to give more time to my family. But also, I just got my license. So I'm really going to be leaning into the real estate agent part, helping people find houses, helping them buy and sell houses. And then I can also give all my experience to them and give them my insight, share my experiences of renos, of investments and all that. So I'm going to be focusing on that, getting that short-term rental up and running. And then my wife and I are hoping to buy a new house next summer in 2025, a new primary, because we need more space. This isn't a very child-friendly house that we're in right now. We need to buy a bigger house. We're kind of outgrowing this house, but we do love it. It's a 1940s Cape Cod, and it's I think we're emotionally attached to it. But we want to make it a short-term rental too. But we're going to be done after that, probably with buying rental properties, at least for a little bit. I think we're going to be focusing on a primary residence here soon.
So a lot of irons in the fire, which is great. I think we're all kind of dealing with that. I like all the ideas that you have, and again, your insight has just been super helpful. So I guess I want to jump then to our final infusion questions. 3 questions we ask every guest on the show. Try to get your quick take on these. So the first, and you've alluded to this a little bit, but I kind of want to expand, is what's one tangible strategy that you use to make sure that your investing works hand in hand with your career as a pharmacist? I mean, you're
You know what?
go ahead.
One of the biggest things is, I learned this from Jim Cramer too. I'll say this. I know he's a hot button for some people, but he would just say diversifying. I think he said diversification Thursdays. He'd always hammer diversify. And so, at least for my wife and I's strategy, part of it is, the 401k. We do buy some stock options through work. And then real estate should be a portion of that also. And then even a private stock investment account. So part of it is diversification, I'd say.
That's important.
And considering that, I don't think a lot of people think of real estate at all, but rental properties I think it should be part of everyone's portfolio, because it's stocks and rental properties sometimes they counterbalance each other also. And you don't want to be too much in real estate. You don't want to be too much in the stock market.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one resource that's been most helpful to you in your real estate journey, whether that's a book, podcast, person, author, website, whatever that would be?
I guess getting as much information as you can. The Bigger Pockets podcast is huge for everybody. You can listen to those and learn a lot of lessons. And then also good old fashioned books too. That the first book I bought was Landlording on Autopilot. And that was the whole reason why I bought a rental property, and the whole reason why I hired a property manager, because he's like, you don't want to do that. Just hire a professional, let them take care of it. So I'd say podcasts, and go to your library and see what books they have on real estate investing too. And just read a lot and listen to a lot.
I love it. And then what's one piece of advice that you'd give to a pharmacist that's contemplating a start in real estate investing?
I definitely recommend it. You don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and wait is one of the famous maxims in there. And that, when I bought that property on 26th Street, around 26th Street, it was basically a beach house. I'm like, I could wait 30 years to buy a beach house and they'll probably be $5 million, or I could buy a beach house now and it's a lot less expensive. I'm not going to live in it, but the mortgage is getting paid down, and it's just. I was even losing money there not a lot, but for a while it was kind of like $50 a month to own the property. I had to pay extra, or $100 to pay extra. But the way I saw it was I was getting the beach house way ahead of time, and so definitely you want to buy it ahead of time if you can.
Yeah, with the value increase you've seen since then, it sure seems like a smart decision in hindsight. That's for sure.
I was going to say, I think I just kind of got lucky. I had a lot of fun at the oceanfront and I loved it. I bought something I loved. And I think that goes into a lot of good decisions for people, is find something you love and pursue it. So.
Yeah, if people want to follow you, find more about you, where can they find you?
Right now, it's kind of the infancy. I've got a unique name. Just my last name's Lithuanian. It's Zinis. Z and zebra, I, N as in Nancy, I, S as in Sam. So you can find me on my Facebook, Greg Zinis. Just friend me, and then I'm going to try to launch a website here. I'll probably have beachpledge.com. I bought that domain for $11.99. Or actually, sorry, it's beachcitypledge.com. That'll be coming down the line eventually, but it's not quite there yet. But that'll be in the future. But just on Facebook for right now. and Instagram and TikTok also.
Perfect. We'll make sure to put your links to your socials in the show notes so people can reach you directly. And thank you so much for joining us and just talking through all the things that you've been up to, and looking forward to seeing what's next from you guys.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you like what you heard in today's show, please leave us a review and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. If you have a question, know someone that would make a good guest, or want to connect with us, head on over to yfprealestate.com and join the growing YFP Real Estate Investing Facebook group.
As we conclude this week's episode of the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast, an important reminder that the content of this podcast is provided to you for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. Information in this podcast and corresponding materials should not be construed as a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any investment or related financial products. We urge listeners to consult with their financial advisor with respect to any investment. Furthermore, the information contained in our archive newsletters, blog posts, and podcasts is not updated and therefore may not be accurate at the time you listen to it. Opinions and analyses expressed herein are solely those of your financial pharmacist unless otherwise noted, and constitute judgments as of the dates published. Such information may contain forward-looking statements which are not intended to be guarantees of future events. Actual results could differ materially from those anticipated in the forward-looking statements. For more information, please visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer.
Thank you for your support of the YFP Real Estate Investing Podcast. Have a great rest of your week.